Alright, so let's talk rocket artillery. The recent event squads from Rocket Storm, they're pretty cool. They're pretty neat. They're pretty interesting. I appreciate that there were 4 of them. Primarily what you're going to see in the background is going to be Russian and maybe a little bit of American footage. Um, they're all the same though. They came with BR4 weapons depending on their nation, so there's that. Um, I don't know. I think I talked about in my event recap that I think the event itself was pretty good. Um, and I did question like going forward how they might change the events because I feel like it's getting stale and all that. But this isn't about the event or the event format. This is about the squads themselves and what they bring to the table. And we'll go over them a little bit more in depth with like what they came with and all that. But I think the core of the discussion here is going to be based around rocket artillery itself as a call-in and its relevance to the game. And I know that there's an argument that people have made that the rocket artillery is a good addition because it's more effective at taking out vehicles. And my experience with that has been about as hit or miss as normal artillery. Like, it probably is better. I just don't think it matters. And the reason why I don't think it matters is that rocket artillery as a call-in takes time to call in, and unless you're calling it on somebody who's sitting still and just not moving at all, they can just drive away. And maybe if you could call artillery anywhere on the map with impunity, it would be one thing, because you'd be able to snipe somebody sitting in a gray zone. But because there are limits to where you can call in your artillery based on the boundaries of the map, it kind of eliminates it as like an anti-gray zone sniping option. And maybe that's something that they should think about. Maybe they should change the restrictions on where you place your artillery. Maybe you should literally be able to place it anywhere on the map. Admittedly, it probably would be more complex for your average player because you'd be looking at the entire map and you'd have to, have situational awareness and context to understand where you actually need to put it. And, I already sometimes see artillery just coming down in random locations, so there's that. Um, my initial take, though, on rocket artillery, and if you saw the, test server video I did, I basically said this there. It's cool. It's something that I've been asking for a long time, but it feels really gimmicky, and it seems to me more like it's a reskin of normal artillery than a fundamentally different call-in. And I think that there are ways that they could have brought it in that would have made it much more interesting. So, for example, when you call in normal artillery, generally it's got a relatively quick call-in where you put it down, you wait a handful of seconds, you get a ranging shot, and then the hail of iron comes, and boom, ba boom, 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 ba boom, ba boom. Right? Everybody goes kaput, hopefully. And the rocket artillery basically does the same thing, and I think that was probably a mistake. I think they should have fundamentally made the call-in itself mechanically different. I think you should have placed the rocket artillery, and instead of doing a ranging shot the way that they do with normal artillery, I think it should have taken longer to call in. So, like, if, let's say normal artillery takes like 20 seconds before it hits, then rocket artillery should have taken like 30 or like 35 seconds. And the trade-off is that when it does show up, it all shows up in one barrage without like a warning shot, ranging shot, whatever, right? And I think that would have been much more interesting to me. Although, admittedly, I don't think it would have fundamentally changed the performance in game, because at the end of the day, I feel like rocket artillery is about as lethal to infantry as normal artillery is, and it might be marginally more effective against vehicles, but I don't think it's something you can depend on to kill a vehicle. Like, in my experience, if I want to kill a vehicle, I'm going to be far more effective either getting in a plane and bombing it, walking up to it and throwing like TNT on it, or putting an AT mine under it, or shooting it with a Panzerfaust or whatever. Like any of those options, for me, are more reliable than dropping rocket artillery on it. But when it works, it's cool. I'll give you that. Now, as for the squads themselves, they came with BR4 weapons. They were fully upgraded weapons, which is really nice. For the Americans, they got Johnsons, and for the Russians, they got SVTs. You know, you get the idea. They also came with 3 med packs. As per usual, I usually outfit mine with all 4. I usually give my guys AP mines. Some of them I gave TNT to, and I think some of them I gave like AT mines to. I usually at least make sure I give my engineers an AP mine because I like to mine my own spawn point. I usually give everybody flasks. A lot of the time I'm a cheap bastard, so I give them Nagant revolvers or whatever the equivalent is. It depends on the nation, and it depends on whether I've got other pistols laying around and whether I feel like wasting silver. Don't get me wrong, I like the nicer pistols, but I would rather have any pistol than no pistol. And even though the Nagant revolver's kind of a piece of shit, it gets the job done. Although, if you play somebody like America, for example, their revolvers, particularly their Colt revolver, is really good. So I have absolutely no qualms taking that on anybody at any BR. As far as the primary guns, it depends on what BR you want to play at. If you're playing up, I have mine with AVSs. They're non-upgraded AVSs, so they're kind of iffy. I just wanted another squad with AVS 36s because I don't feel like I use them enough. But I probably would have been more effective with AVT 40s just because I feel like they're a little bit more, I don't know, comfortable. That being said, if I actually just spent the silver to upgrade the AVSs, it would be a non-issue. But if you're going to play at BR4, because we do have the better matchmaking in now, you can leave the SVTs on them. When it comes to, say, the Americans, the Johnson rifle's a good rifle, it's fine, no complaints. I would rather throw T20s on them if you're going to play up, and if you're going to play down, again, it really depends on the BR. I think we all probably have our weapon preferences at different BRs. Throwing M1 Grands on them and bringing them down to BR3 is pretty nice. Throwing Leonfield number 4 Mark 1s on them at BR2, fantastic. Same with the Ross rifle. But this kind of goes for every nation, right? Like, you could throw the Winchesters on them for Russia, or like if you play Germany, you can give them like FG42s. Well, I'd give them FG42-2s, but you know, or you can give them Armagueras. It just depends on what BR you want to play them at. But that flexibility that they have is really, really nice. Other than that, I mean, they're kind of cool that they're radio operators and that you can give them 2 primaries. So I usually do try to diversify them. So even at like a higher BR, if I'm giving them like an AVS 36 or like a T20, I try to give them like a bolt action rifle as a backup, because I can use the semi-auto or I can use the automatic rifle at closer ranges, but then I can still like reach out and one-tap people with the bolt actions at farther ranges, which is nice. Obviously the engineer doesn't do that, he's got a hammer and, you know, hammer gonna bonk. Depending on the nation and the weapon, I would consider swapping their backpacks out. If you're playing lower BR, I think you're fine with the health pack backpacks. If you're playing higher BR though, like if you're running around with FG42-2s or T20s, I would absolutely swap out their backpacks for large ammo bags, just because it's so easy to blow through all of the ammo. I think the exception is the engineer. I still like running big backpacks on my engineers, because having more medkits, I feel like it gives them more survivability, and that usually means that I have more chances to actually get them to a place where I can put down a spawn point, or if I need to build an ammo box or whatever. I know that I can just call in airdrop ammo boxes now, So if the engineer dies, it's not the end of the world. But at the same time, I feel like it's way more convenient to be able to just build one and not wait for a call-in. They do come at 4 out of 5. I haven't bothered promoting them. You can. If you do, I would refund all of their vitality perks and pick up vitality. They come with horizontal recoil, which I think is useless on them. I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are riflemen, right? Like, horizontal isn't really doing anything for them. Or, actually, I might be looking at the... No, I'm looking at the engineer in the squad. I just wanted to make sure I'm actually looking at the right squad and not the other engineer squad. Yeah, so they come with horizontal recoil, which is super scuffed. I could see vertical, I could see reload speed. I just don't see the use for horizontal on a rifleman. Except for, like, new scenarios. And then, mobility, personally I like medpack usage speed and I like run speed. But, I feel like mobility is a really, like, user choice tree. They come with aim speed, which is fine. It's just not what I would normally go with. Like I said, I haven't really heavily perked them out. I've been just playing with them raw, and they've been doing fine for me. I'm not really complaining, but having horizontal recoil is a useless perk to me on a rifleman. If they were like machine gunners, or depending on the SMG I'm equipping the squad with, maybe on certain assaulters, but I feel like that's scuffed as fuck on a rifleman. So, let me know what you guys think down below. Generally speaking, I like them because I think they're cool, but I don't actually think that they added anything substantial to the game. It's not like when half-tracks came out, or like when we got our first event half-tracks, and they were half-tracks that were armed. Like, I feel like that was much more impactful because it's a much greater difference in capability versus the non-armed half-tracks. Or paratroopers, for example. When we got paratroopers just at all, it was a really big deal. I feel like these guys are just a novelty, and I feel like they're kind of forgettable because of that. That being said, having them for people who either aren't very far into the game yet, especially like with the new Steam release, I feel like is a good thing. Like, potentially they have squads for every nation now. They may not, because they may not have been able to play enough of the event, but they had the potential to get a squad for every nation, and that squad can be equipped up and down, so it can scale with you all the way up and all the way down, and you've got an engineer that should more or less be able to build all of the things. So, for a newer player, I think it's a net gain. For anybody who's been playing the game for any amount of time, I think they were entirely forgettable and probably a waste of time to grind. They're cool though. Like, it's cool to listen to the rocket artillery fly overhead. And cool factor is kind of half the battle. Just appearance, cool factor, aesthetics, sounds. It's probably like half the battle. So, they're definitely winning in that aspect. But let me know what you think down below. As per usual, get out there, kick ass, take names, and win your games.
Нужна поддержка артиллерии!
Принято! Артиллерия, огонь! Враг пытается захватить нашу точку.